In this video, I want to show you some agricultural features around southern New Mexico that I believe to be prehistoric, mostly in Luna, Doñana, and Otero counties. So if you look at this picture of this area, it looks really kind of bare and disturbed and kind of dead. And when you get down close and you look, you find out that it really kind of is. So I'm going to start down by Columbus, New Mexico in the Tres Hermanos mountain area. And there's some contour fields on the northeast slope, some contoured arroyo fields over on the northwest slope, and then there's a lot of other cleared area like on the south there. And then there's some square grid fields down in the valley next to the town. So I'll start up here with these contour fields on the northeast slope. It's pretty good acreage of fields there, look pretty old. All up this slope, if you notice, there's kind of a triangular shaped ditch or canal down by the road. That's kind of common amongst these prehistoric features. There's some more of it. Shows how they're set up, a ditch running across the top from a reservoir up in the upper left corner. And these rows or these ditches or walls of rock, whatever they are about 25 meters apart there. So if you go over onto the northwest slope of the mountain, you have these drainages that come out, and they've all been modified so the water kind of goes back and forth in this contour shape instead of straight down the slope, and I'll show more of that later. So if you go here to the zoom out a little on the southern part of the Tres Hermanos, you see this big cleared area that looks really bare. And not only that, but the reddish area next to it, if you go in and look close, it's all disturbed, and you'll see the all these vegetation lines where I think it's been cleared. And in this cleared area on the south slope, you get these stripes going across the slope there. And I believe this was all some sort of agricultural fields, and it looks really devoid of nutrients right now. So, yeah. Zoom back out, you look at this area around the Florida Mountains all the way down to Columbus. It's all covered in farmland, fairly defined square and rectangular fields. So let's look here down south again by Columbus. You can see the border there and all these squares and grid patterns here. Look kind of old. Part of what the town of Columbus is built on. And then zoom in on one of these fields right down on the border. It looks pretty old, and there's a pretty good sized diversion dam there. Just lots of the area around Columbus, it looks like there's these old grid fields. Here's one right on the road, has a reservoir in the corner, which most of these have associated with them. You can see the crop lines there in the field to the right. And it's fairly complicated the way water flows into this and out. And there's some various ways you can divert water and maybe add fertilizers or even use the chambers to settle out sediments. So some more of this gridded off area north of Columbus now. Looks old, and there's not much even modern or historic activity there, it doesn't seem. And each one of these plots again has one of these reservoirs. Another area, there's one where people are actually putting stuff in the reservoir, living in it, anyway. Up by the turn in the road going to Deming, another one of these kind of old looking fields with the reservoir. This one actually looks like it has maybe a ditch running along the top of it. So now let's look on the east side of the Floridas in that big valley there. There's a big complex of fields, long rectangular fields there, about 4 miles across, and 7 or 8 miles goes to the south. These rectangles about 800 meters by about 130 meters, fairly regular. This is the line between, it's a berm that's actually 2 canals on each side to feed the fields on either side. If we move farther up to the north in that same valley east of the Floridas, it's the same thing, a whole big complex of this same kind of shape and size fields along the interstate there. And then there's even real faint fields up to the north that are the same size and shape, that are either just been marked off and aren't completed yet, or they're really old. And the same thing if you zoom in, they have reservoirs associated with them, and they look really old. Close up. If you move over into Deming itself to the west, you still see that same rectangular shape pattern of fields there, and again it looks kind of old. And I know from working in all these areas there's a lot of prehistoric sites all along this whole area. And even down south of Deming, again, it's gridded off into this same size and shape fields that again look pretty old. And then all along the edges of these valleys where these fields are, there's more either planning for more fields, or these are different kinds of old fields. So if we zoom out and look at this area again, there's where all these fields are. They're all fed by reservoirs and canal systems that come off all the local mountains in the area. I know that in the 60s and 70s, a lot of this land was sold as developed and ready to go land, and I think that it was part of this land scam. And what they did is they just bought up these old prehistoric fields and sold them as developed land. Now I'm going to move up a little north of Deming to a mountain range called Fluorite Ridge. I know this area pretty well from prospecting there. I've been looking at Google Earth for a long time in this area. Better photos have shown that this area really is a bunch of contoured fields on the slope of this mountain. It's a strange kind of rose on this almost gravelly hill here. And then Fluorite Ridge itself, all the mountain is these cleared areas and some striping. It's just like what I showed you before, and I'll show you more. But anyway, there's what it does. It goes up the slope of the mountain and stops there. Doesn't appear to be any kind of fence line, not a road. Appears to be cleared, and it appears to be striped with these probably water control features for fields. Let's move even a little farther to the east, the next valley over from there, coming off of Cook's Peak. There's a whole bunch of these other kinds of agricultural features. It's all this kind of contoured wash areas where they make the water kind of zigzag back and forth across the slope. That water should be running kind of straight down the slope. Instead, it goes back and forth and forms this kind of wave pattern. And there, again, it's not a natural way for water to flow. There's your slope, and then the blue line shows you kind of what they're doing. with the water. And if you go over south of Alamogordo on the south edge of the Sacramento Mountains, there's this berm feature that looks just like one of those agricultural features that's being constructed. And I'll show you some more shots of this later. But that's what I believe that is the start of one of these contoured arroyo features. And there's lots of it out there in that drainage. See the dark lines running through this one, canal systems running to these fields and come out of the reservoirs upslope. And there's an area where you can see how they took it right up the side of this mountain. So let's move farther to the east to the Sierra de las Uvas Mountains. This shows a bunch of marks I have on the north side, on the north slope, that are all contour fields, appear to be rock lined in most cases, but not all of them. And this is what it looks like on Google Earth. Lots and lots of rows. Show you kind of the slope and how they're going across it. Quite a few acres of these fields. All the way up the side of the mountain. Way up high. And then it goes all the way down the north slope towards Hatch. And this is down closer to Hatch there. A lot of rows. So that's in the Uvas. And part 2, I'll show you more stuff from around Las Cruces over to the Sacramento Mountains to the east.